On the 26th of February, 1947, Alexander Löhr stood before a firing squad in Belgrade. Once a high-ranking commander in the Luftwaffe, he had overseen thousands of airplanes across the European continent. Now he was alone, facing the gravest consequence. What led this Austrian officer to be executed as a war criminal? Löhr's journey towards command began amidst the diverse cultural environment of 19th-century Romania. Born on the 20th of May, 1885, in Târnu-Severin, he was the son of Frederick Löhr, a former captain of a hospital ship, and Catherine Hayward, a Ukrainian nurse from Odessa. Immersed in a multicultural atmosphere, he became fluent in German, Russian, French, and Romanian by the time he was 20 years old. This linguistic prowess gave him a unique edge within the Austro-Hungarian military ranks. By the year 1906, after attending cadet training in Kashau, Timisoara, and the Teresian Military Academy, he graduated with exceptional marks and began active duty as a second lieutenant in a pioneer battalion. The experience of World War I profoundly transformed Löhr's understanding of warfare. Serving as a pioneer officer, he witnessed the devastating impact of artillery and recognized the increasing importance of air power. He came to realize that future conflicts would require well-coordinated attacks involving various weapon systems. By 1921, his expertise and vision had led to his promotion to lieutenant colonel. Following the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1918, many officers found their futures uncertain. Löhr adjusted by joining the newly established Austrian Armed Forces, continuing his military career despite the upheaval. His technical abilities and leadership qualities kept him highly sought after as military aviation progressed throughout the 1920s. From 1921 until 1934, he advanced through various staff roles, ultimately becoming Director of the Air Force within the Federal Army's ministry. By 1934, his expertise in aviation tactics earned him command of the Austrian Air Force, which included hundreds of aircraft and thousands of personnel. He restructured its organization and operations, creating an effective air service during the tense prelude to 1938. After the Anschluss in March 1938, the Luftwaffe took control of Austria's Air Force and promoted Löhr to the rank of General Lieutenant. His language proficiency and operational knowledge made him an obvious candidate for leading significant commands in upcoming campaigns. Within a few months, he confronted his first major challenge. Now integrated into the Luftwaffe's command system, Löhr was expected to demonstrate his capabilities during the German military offensives and prove that Austria's leading Air Force figure could perform admirably on a much broader platform. In September 1939, as Germany launched its attack on Poland, Löhr led Luftflotte 4, commanding over 1,200 aircraft, representing one of the most powerful bombing forces ever assembled. His orders were clear and direct: destroy Polish resistance and force a swift capitulation. The High Command anticipated that blitzkrieg tactics would secure rapid and decisive victories. The invasion commenced on September 1, 1939. Löhr's bombers provided support to ground troops on numerous fronts, targeting airfields, transportation routes, and military installations. Despite fierce opposition, the Polish forces were overwhelmed by the superior German firepower and coordination. Within a matter of weeks, most organized resistance had collapsed, leaving Warsaw as the last significant stronghold. As Polish troops retreated into Warsaw, Alexander Löhr faced a difficult challenge. The city contained very few legitimate military objectives, since most Polish aircraft had been destroyed and existing military installations posed minimal threat. However, thousands of soldiers, officials, and civilians remained determined to resist. Löhr's strategy combined direct military attacks with psychological tactics. He intended to bomb both military and civilian locations to crush the morale of the population and compel surrender. He believed that instilling terror among civilians would drain their will to continue fighting. On September 25, 1939, Löhr launched his offensive. Bombers from Luftflotte 4 relentlessly battered Warsaw in continuous waves, targeting both military and civilian structures. More than 500 tons of high explosives were dropped on military posts, government offices, and residential areas, accompanied by 72 tons of incendiaries designed to create massive fires in the densely populated city. This assault demonstrated Löhr's careful planning. He initially focused on military targets before shifting attacks to civilian neighborhoods as resistance weakened. The precise timing prevented Polish forces from organizing effective anti-aircraft defense. Each bombing wave showed detailed understanding of the city's geography. The historic center of Warsaw was demolished, and raging firestorms swept through the ancient streets, overwhelming all firefighting efforts. Churches, landmarks, and entire districts were engulfed in flames without restraint. Even hospitals providing care for the injured suffered as bombs continued to fall relentlessly. Civilian casualties were significant. Essential services such as water, electricity, and communication systems failed. With warehouses destroyed and transportation routes disrupted, distributing food became unfeasible. After the fall of Warsaw, German accounts praised Löhr's effectiveness. They concluded that air power had shattered Polish morale more rapidly than ground forces. This campaign solidified his image as a leader ready to target civilians to achieve military objectives, a tactic soon to be repeated. In April 1941, Hitler ordered a retaliatory operation known as Operation Retribution against Belgrade following a coup in Yugoslavia. The Yugoslav government had initially aligned with the Axis in March 1941, but a military coup on the 27th of March ousted the pro-German regime. Hitler perceived this act of defiance as an unforgivable betrayal, demanding swift and severe vengeance. He entrusted Löhr with the responsibility of planning and carrying out an aerial attack aimed at punishing Yugoslavia and deterring other countries from similar rebellions. The situation in Belgrade differed from that in Warsaw 18 months earlier. The Yugoslav capital had few military targets that could justify extensive bombing campaigns. Most of the country's aircraft had been destroyed or seized during the opening hours of the conflict. The city's military facilities posed no significant threat. The German forces faced a considerable threat as they advanced throughout the country. This bombing campaign served solely repressive aims intended to intimidate the Yugoslav population into submission and to showcase German dominance to potential defectors throughout the occupied territories. On April 6, 1941, Alexander Löhr orchestrated an assault involving 484 aircraft to strike Belgrade in a single massive operation. Every choice regarding targets and timing was carefully planned to cause the maximum possible harm to civilian morale and essential infrastructure. The mission demanded flawless coordination between bomber units, fighter escorts, and ground support teams conducting operations from several nations. Löhr intentionally focused on hospitals, schools, and residential zones as principal targets, aiming to amplify fear and civilian casualties. He directed the initial deployment of incendiary bombs to start fires that would also mark locations for a nocturnal follow-up attack. Selecting hospitals and schools was a deliberate move to send a clear message that no civilian spaces would escape German reprisal. The bombardment commenced at sunrise on April 6, 1941, as Löhr's forces struck in synchronized waves throughout the entirety of the day. This approach, involving successive waves, was designed to hinder emergency response efforts and to guarantee the thorough devastation of the Yugoslav capital. Each additional wave targeted spots where survivors might have been gathering or where rescue attempts had begun. This method ensured continuous pressure and widespread destruction, exemplifying a harsh strategy focused on terrorizing civilians and crippling resistance. The attack on Belgrade reflected a chilling willingness to destroy vital services and homes to impose dominance and break the spirit of the population under occupation. The intervals between the bombing waves were intentionally designed to catch emergency teams in the open, resulting in higher casualties among those trying to assist the victims of the attacks. Alexander Löhr's strategy for selecting targets involved deliberate strikes on Belgrade's central library and cultural institutions. He understood that demolishing symbols of national pride would crush the spirit of the Yugoslav people more effectively than mere military objectives. The National Library housed centuries of Yugoslav cultural treasures and historical records. Destroying it aimed to weaken Yugoslavia's national identity and showcase Germany's overwhelming control over the conquered country. The bombings claimed thousands of civilian lives, far exceeding any justifiable military purpose, and devastated Belgrade's infrastructure. The ancient fortress and historic neighborhoods were nearly obliterated under the relentless bombing campaign. These decisions made during Operation Retribution later became crucial evidence against Löhr during his trial. The ruin of Belgrade marked a significant turning point that ultimately led to his confrontation with justice. As the European conflict neared its end, Frederick Löhr received orders to surrender without conditions. Rather than comply, he instructed his troops to attempt a breakout toward Austria. On the 9th of May 1945, the 14th Slovene Division of the Yugoslav partisans captured him. He sought to negotiate safe passage for his soldiers into Austria, but his request was denied. Forced to give an order to stop fighting, Löhr saw his troops disregard it. Quietly slipping away, he revoked the surrender and continued the attempt to break out. This triggered a fierce manhunt that ended with his capture on the 13th of May. His destiny now depended on the very people he had bombed in 1941. Legal authorities charged him according to Article 3, Item 3 of the Act on Crimes Against the Nation and the State, which encompassed offenses against civilians and hostages. The charges included the bombing of Belgrade, ruthless anti-partisan retaliation in 1943, executions of prisoners, destruction of villages, and assaults on non-combatant populations. He was also accused of disregarding Germany's unconditional capitulation. The Yugoslav government sought to hold him personally accountable. His defense lawyers argued he merely followed orders and acted within the accepted conduct of war. However, prosecutors responded with extensive proof, such as Luftwaffe documents, eyewitness accounts, and official papers demonstrating that he orchestrated the Belgrade attack, chose civilian targets, and commanded attacks on hospitals, schools, and residential areas. They maintained that these decisions far exceeded what was militarily necessary and amounted to deliberate bombing of civilians. The trial lasted from 1946 into early 1947. Survivors testified about the devastating impact on civilian life, describing intentional assaults on cultural sites, hospitals, and homes. Prosecutors highlighted his direct involvement in the operation, aiming to create terror and cause the greatest harm to the civilian population. On the 16th of February in the year 1947, the court declared him guilty on every charge. The judges determined he held direct responsibility for orchestrating and carrying out terror attacks against civilians, dismissing the defense of simply following orders. According to international law, they stated, one must refuse to obey unlawful commands. The evidence demonstrated that he developed strategies that increased civilian casualties, including scheduling attacks to prevent rescue efforts. Alexander Löhr was condemned to death by firing squad, while his fellow defendants, among them Josef Kubler, received death sentences by hanging. A decade later, on the 26th of February 1947, prison guards escorted him at daybreak to a courtyard in Belgrade. Löhr faced the firing squad with steady resolve until the very last moment. He was 61 years old when he was executed. This took place in the same city that he had ordered bombed 6 years prior, bringing full circle a path that began with notable military potential and ended with confirmed crimes against humanity. From a once promising Austrian officer to a convicted war criminal, Löhr's tale reveals how unchecked ambition without moral guidance can lead from leadership heights to a grim execution. Some interpret his actions as following Luftwaffe principles. Others highlight his intentional attacks on hospitals, cultural sites, and residential areas as deliberate war atrocities. Regardless of perspective, his life concluded in the very city he had helped devastate, facing a firing squad in Belgrade. That concludes the story. Thank you for watching. If you found this account intriguing, make sure to watch the rise and fall of Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, Hitler's loyal follower. Remember to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss any of our World War II content. Looking forward to seeing you in the next video.